Welcome brave souls to Dreadful Diaries, where the shadows whisper secrets and the night holds untold horrors. If you crave the thrill of the unknown, make sure to subscribe and join our community of fellow horror enthusiasts. Now dim the lights, grab a blanket, and let's dive into our first tale of terror.
Officer Mark Thompson had been with the Sialkot Police Department for over a decade. He was known for his dedication and keen instincts, but nothing could prepare him for the chilling events that would unfold one fateful night. It was a quiet evening shift when Mark received a call from dispatch about a disturbance in a nearby neighborhood. As he drove through the dimly lit streets, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Just a week prior, his close friend and fellow officer, Ali Khan, had tragically died in a car accident while responding to a call. The department was still reeling from the loss, and Mark felt the weight of grief heavy on his shoulders. As he arrived at the scene, Mark noticed the area was eerily silent. He stepped out of his patrol car and approached the house where the disturbance had been reported. Just as he was about to knock on the door, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed a number he recognized all too well, Ali's. Mark's heart raced. He hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should answer. The last time he had spoken to Ali was just before the accident. With a deep breath, he answered the call. "Hello?" Mark said, his voice trembling. "Mark," came a familiar voice, but it sounded distant and distorted. "I need your help." "Ali? Is that you?" Mark's mind raced. "How is this possible? You're gone." "I know," Ali replied, his voice echoing as if coming from a faraway place. "But I need you to listen. There's something you need to find. It's about my last case." Mark's heart sank. Ali had been investigating a series of suspicious disappearances in the area before his death. "What do you mean? What do I need to find?" "Go to the old warehouse by the river. You'll find the answers there. But be careful, they're watching." The line went dead, leaving Mark in stunned silence. He stood there for a moment, grappling with the reality of what had just happened. Was it a cruel trick of his mind, or had he truly spoken to his deceased friend? Determined to uncover the truth, Mark drove to the old warehouse. The building loomed in the darkness, its broken windows and crumbling walls giving it an ominous presence. As he stepped inside, the air felt heavy, and a chill ran down his spine. He began to search the warehouse, flashlight in hand, illuminating the shadows that danced around him. As he moved deeper into the building, he stumbled upon a hidden room. Inside, he found old files and photographs related to Ali's investigation. The walls were covered in notes and maps, detailing the disappearances and connections to a local crime syndicate. Suddenly, Mark heard a noise behind him. He turned quickly, but there was no one there. The feeling of being watched intensified, and he could sense that he was not alone. He continued to sift through the papers, piecing together the clues Ali had left behind. As he examined the files, Mark discovered a name that sent chills down his spine. One of the officers in the department was involved in the syndicate. Realizing the danger he was in, Mark quickly gathered the evidence and made his way back to his car. Just as he stepped outside, he was confronted by a group of menacing figures. They were members of the crime syndicate, and they had been watching him. Mark's heart raced as he realized he had walked into a trap. In a desperate attempt to escape, he ran back into the warehouse, but they were right behind him. As he navigated through the dark corridors, he felt a sudden rush of cold air, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw Ali's figure standing at the end of the hallway, urging him to keep going. With renewed determination, Mark pushed forward, using the knowledge he had gained from Ali's files to outsmart his pursuers. He managed to find a back exit and sprinted to his car, heart pounding in his chest. Once he was safely back at the station, Mark reported everything he had discovered. The evidence he had gathered led to a major investigation into the crime syndicate, and the corrupt officer was arrested. The case that had claimed Ali's life was finally being brought to justice. In the days that followed, Mark couldn't shake the feeling that Ali had been with him that night, guiding him to the truth. He often found himself looking at the old photographs of his friend, feeling a sense of peace knowing that he had honored Ali's memory by solving the case. Though the haunting call had led him into danger, it also brought closure to a tragic chapter in his life. Mark knew that Ali would always be a part of him, watching over him as he continued to serve and protect the community they both loved. As the investigation into the crime syndicate unfolded, Mark found himself reflecting on the events of that night. The eerie call from Ali had not only led him to uncover a web of corruption but had also reignited his sense of purpose as a police officer. He felt a renewed commitment to his duty, driven by the memory of his fallen friend. In the weeks that followed, the department worked tirelessly to dismantle the syndicate. Mark collaborated closely with the detectives, sharing the insights he had gained from Ali's files. They uncovered a network of illegal activities, including drug trafficking and human trafficking, that had plagued the community for years. The evidence Mark had gathered proved crucial in securing convictions against several key players in the organization. Despite the success of the investigation, Mark couldn't shake the feeling of loss. He often visited Ali's grave, bringing flowers and sharing stories about their time together on the force. Each visit felt like a conversation, a way to keep Ali's spirit alive. He would recount the latest developments in the case, hoping that somehow, Ali could hear him. One evening, as Mark sat by the grave, he felt a sudden chill in the air. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the cemetery. He closed his eyes, allowing the moment to wash over him. In that stillness, he felt a sense of calm, as if Ali was there with him, reassuring him that he had done well. As the investigation concluded, the department held a memorial service for Ali. Officers from all over the region attended, sharing stories and honoring his legacy. Mark stood among his colleagues, feeling a mix of pride and sorrow. He had not only avenged his friend's death but had also brought justice to the victims of the syndicate. During the service, Mark was approached by Ali's family. They expressed their gratitude for the work he had done and how much it meant to them that Ali's memory would live on through the justice served. Mark felt a deep sense of responsibility to continue fighting for what was right, not just for Ali, but for all those who had suffered at the hands of criminals. Months passed, and the community began to heal. With the syndicate dismantled, Mark noticed a change in the atmosphere. People felt safer, and the streets were quieter. He continued to patrol the area, always vigilant, but now with a sense of hope. One night, while on patrol, Mark received a call about a suspicious vehicle parked near the river. As he approached the scene, he felt a familiar presence, a sense of calm washing over him. He parked his car and stepped out, scanning the area. The moonlight illuminated the path ahead, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a figure standing by the water's edge. "Ali," he whispered, half expecting a response. But there was only silence. Mark smiled to himself, feeling a warmth in his heart. He knew that Ali was watching over him, guiding him in spirit. He approached the vehicle, finding it empty but with a note left on the dashboard. It was a simple message: "Keep going." With renewed determination, Mark took the note as a sign to continue his work. He knew that the fight against crime was far from over, but he felt empowered by the memory of his friend. Each day on the job became a tribute to Ali, a reminder of the bond they shared and the sacrifices made in the line of duty. As he drove through the streets of Sialkot, Mark felt a sense of purpose. He was not just an officer, he was a guardian of the community, a protector of the innocent. And in his heart, he carried the spirit of his friend, Ali Khan, who had shown him that even in the darkest moments, there was always a light guiding the way. The last call had changed everything for Mark, but it had also solidified his resolve to honor Ali's legacy. He would continue to serve, to protect, and to seek justice, knowing that he was never truly alone. Officer Sarah Malik had always prided herself on her keen instincts and dedication to her job. As a patrol officer in Sialkot, she was familiar with the streets and the people who lived there. But one night, during a routine patrol, she would encounter something that would challenge her understanding of reality. It was a chilly evening, and the streets were quiet as Sarah drove her patrol car through the dimly lit neighborhoods. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the empty roads. As she turned a corner, she noticed a figure standing under a streetlight. The silhouette was familiar, and as she approached, her heart skipped a beat. The person standing there looked exactly like her, same height, same build, and even the same dark hair pulled back into a ponytail. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "What the hell?" she muttered to herself, pulling over to the side of the road. As she stepped out of the car, the figure turned to face her. It was like looking into a mirror, but the expression on the doppelganger's face was unsettling. There was a coldness in the eyes that sent shivers down Sarah's spine. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, her voice steady despite the fear creeping in. The doppelganger smiled, but it was a smile that didn't reach the eyes. "I'm you," it replied, its voice eerily similar to Sarah's. "Or at least, I was." Confusion washed over Sarah. "What do you mean, you or me? This is impossible." The figure stepped closer, and Sarah could see the details more clearly. The clothes were identical to her uniform, but there was something off about the way the fabric hung. "You need to listen to me," the doppelganger said urgently. "You're in danger. They're coming for you." "Who's coming for me?" Sarah asked, her heart racing. "What are you talking about?" Before the figure could respond, a loud noise echoed through the night, a gunshot. Sarah instinctively ducked, her training kicking in. She looked around, trying to locate the source of the sound. When she turned back to the doppelganger, it was gone. Panic surged through her. Had she imagined it? Shaking her head, Sarah got back into her patrol car and called for backup, reporting the gunshot. As she waited for assistance, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. When her partner, Officer Ahmed, arrived, Sarah recounted the strange encounter. "You're sure you saw someone who looked exactly like you?" he asked, skepticism lacing his voice. "Yes. I swear it," Sarah insisted. "And then there was a gunshot. We need to check the area." They began to search the vicinity, but there was no sign of the doppelganger or any evidence of a shooting. Just as they were about to give up, Sarah noticed something on the ground, a badge. She picked it up, her heart sinking as she recognized the name engraved on it, Officer Aisha Khan. Aisha had been a promising officer in the department, known for her bravery and dedication. But she had died tragically in the line of duty 2 years prior during a botched drug bust. Sarah had attended her funeral, mourning the loss of a fellow officer. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. The figure she had encountered was Aisha's doppelganger. "Sarah, are you okay?" Ahmed asked, noticing her pale complexion. "I think I just saw Aisha," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think she's trying to warn me." Ahmed frowned, trying to process what she was saying. "You need to take a step back. It's been a long night. Maybe you're just seeing things." But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Aisha was trying to communicate something important. That night, she couldn't sleep, replaying the encounter in her mind. The next day, she decided to dig deeper into Aisha's last case, hoping to uncover any clues that might explain the warning. As she reviewed the files, Sarah discovered that Aisha had been investigating a drug ring that had connections to corrupt officers within the department. The case had been closed after her death, but something about it felt unfinished. Determined to honor Aisha's memory, Sarah decided to reopen the investigation. Over the next few weeks, Sarah worked tirelessly, following leads and interviewing informants. She uncovered a network of corruption that ran deeper than she had imagined, involving several officers who had been involved in Aisha's case. The more she uncovered, the more she felt Aisha's presence guiding her, pushing her to seek justice. One night, while reviewing evidence in the station, Sarah received another chilling visit. The lights flickered, and she felt a cold breeze sweep through the room. A figure appeared in the shadows, and Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the familiar silhouette. It was Aisha, her doppelganger, standing before her with an expression of urgency. "Sarah," Aisha said, her voice echoing softly in the dimly lit room. "You're close. You need to be careful. They know you're onto them." "Aisha!" Sarah exclaimed, her voice a mix of fear and relief. "I've been trying to find out what happened. I think I'm getting closer to the truth." Aisha nodded, her expression serious. "You have to be cautious. They won't let you expose them without a fight. Trust your instincts, and don't let anyone distract you." With that, Aisha's figure began to fade, and Sarah felt a rush of determination. She knew she had to act quickly. The next day, she gathered enough evidence to present to her superiors, detailing the corruption within the department and the connections to Aisha's death. However, as she prepared to go public with her findings, she noticed that some of her colleagues were acting strangely. Whispers filled the air, and she could sense that someone was watching her every move. It became clear that the corrupt officers were aware of her investigation and were trying to intimidate her into silence. One evening, as Sarah left the station, she noticed a car following her. Her heart raced as she took a series of turns, trying to shake off the tail. But the car remained close behind, its headlights glaring in her rearview mirror. She decided to confront the situation head-on. Pulling into a deserted parking lot, Sarah parked her car and got out, ready to face whoever was following her. The other car stopped, and a figure stepped out. It was Officer Malik, one of the officers she had trusted. "What are you doing, Sarah?" he asked, his voice low and threatening. "You need to drop this investigation. It's not worth it." "I can't do that, Malik," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Aisha deserves justice, and I won't let you or anyone else intimidate me." Malik stepped closer, his demeanor shifting from threatening to menacing. "You don't know what you're getting into. You think you're safe, but you're not. You're playing a dangerous game." Just then, Sarah felt a chill in the air, and she glanced around, half expecting to see Aisha's figure appear again. Instead, she felt a surge of courage. "I'm not afraid of you," she said defiantly. "I know what you did to Aisha, and I won't let you silence me." Malik's expression darkened, and he took a step back, realizing that Sarah was serious. "You have no idea what you're up against," he warned before getting back into his car and speeding away. Shaken but resolute, Sarah returned to the station and prepared to present her findings to her superiors. The next day, she gathered a small group of trusted officers and laid out the evidence she had collected. To her surprise, several of them were supportive and agreed to help her expose the corruption. With their backing, Sarah went public with the investigation, presenting the evidence to the chief of police. The response was swift, and an internal investigation was launched. As the truth began to unravel, several officers were placed on administrative leave, and the community rallied behind Sarah, demanding accountability. In the midst of the chaos, Sarah felt Aisha's presence guiding her. She often found herself talking to her, seeking advice and reassurance. It was as if Aisha was there, encouraging her to keep pushing forward. Finally, after weeks of tension and uncertainty, the investigation culminated in a press conference. Sarah stood before the cameras, her heart pounding as she recounted the events that had led to Aisha's death and the corruption within the department. The community listened intently, and Sarah felt a sense of empowerment wash over her. As she finished her speech, she felt a rush of cold air, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw Aisha standing in the crowd, smiling proudly. Tears filled Sarah's eyes as she realized that she had not only honored Aisha's memory but had also brought justice to those who had suffered. In the days that followed, the corrupt officers were arrested, and the department began to rebuild its reputation. Sarah continued to patrol the streets, her heart filled with a sense of purpose. She knew that Aisha would always be with her, guiding her in her mission to protect and serve. The experience had changed her forever, but it had also solidified her resolve to fight for justice. As she drove through the familiar streets of Sialkot, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that she was not alone. Aisha's spirit lived on in her, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there. Officer Daniel Reyes had been on the Sialkot police force for 5 years, but nothing could prepare him for the night he was assigned to patrol the old cemetery on the outskirts of town. The cemetery, with its weathered headstones and ancient trees, had a reputation for being haunted. Locals often shared stories of strange occurrences, but Daniel had always dismissed them as mere folklore. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the graveyard, Daniel and his partner, Officer Fatima Khan, arrived for their shift. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness, and the only sounds were the rustling leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. They parked their patrol car near the entrance and stepped out, the crunch of gravel underfoot echoing in the quiet. "Let's get this over with," Fatima said, her voice tinged with unease. "I've heard the stories about this place." Daniel chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. "It's just a bunch of old graves. Nothing to worry about." As they began their patrol, the moon rose high in the sky, illuminating the rows of headstones. The cemetery was eerily beautiful, but Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. They walked the perimeter, checking for any signs of vandalism or trespassers, but everything seemed undisturbed. About an hour into their shift, they reached a section of the cemetery that was particularly old, with crumbling stones and overgrown grass. Suddenly, Daniel heard a faint whispering sound, like voices carried on the wind. He stopped, straining to listen. "Did you hear that?" he asked Fatima, his heart racing. "Hear what?" she replied, looking around nervously. "Voices." It sounded like someone was talking. Fatima frowned, her eyes scanning the shadows. "You're just spooking yourself. It's probably just the wind." But Daniel wasn't convinced. They continued their patrol, but the whispering grew louder, echoing through the trees. It was as if the voices were calling to them, beckoning them deeper into the cemetery. Daniel felt an inexplicable urge to follow the sound, but he resisted, reminding himself that they were on duty. As they approached a particularly old headstone, Daniel noticed something strange. The stone seemed to be shifting slightly, as if it were moving. He blinked, thinking it was just a trick of the light, but when he looked again, the headstone had indeed shifted position. "Fatima, look at that," he exclaimed, pointing. She turned to see the headstone wobbling slightly. "What the hell?" she whispered, stepping back. Before they could process what was happening, the ground beneath them trembled, and a low rumble echoed through the cemetery. The whispering intensified, now sounding like a chorus of voices, pleading and mournful. Daniel's heart raced as he felt a cold breeze sweep through the area, chilling him to the bone. "Let's get out of here," Fatima urged, her voice shaking. But as they turned to leave, they heard a loud crash. Daniel spun around to see several headstones toppling over, one after another, as if an unseen force was at work. Panic surged through him, and he grabbed Fatima's arm, pulling her toward the exit. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted back toward their patrol car, the whispers growing louder and more frantic. Daniel glanced back, and to his horror, he saw shadowy figures emerging from the ground, their forms indistinct but undeniably human. They seemed to be reaching out, as if trying to escape their graves. "Keep going!" Fatima yelled, her voice filled with terror. They reached the car, fumbling with the keys as the whispers turned into anguished cries. Daniel finally managed to unlock the door, and they jumped inside, slamming the doors shut. He started the engine, his hands shaking as he glanced in the rearview mirror. The figures were now surrounding the car, their faces twisted in expressions of sorrow and rage. Daniel's heart raced as he pressed the gas pedal, speeding out of the cemetery and onto the road. The cries faded into the distance, but the chilling feeling of being watched lingered. Once they were safely away from the cemetery, Daniel pulled over to the side of the road, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Fatima was silent, staring out the window, her face pale. "What just happened?" she finally asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Daniel replied, still trying to process the night's events. "But we need to report this." They returned to the station, shaken but determined to share their experience. As they recounted the story to their supervisor, they were met with skepticism. "You two must have been imagining things," he said dismissively. "Cemeteries are creepy at night, but there's no such thing as ghosts." Daniel and Fatima exchanged glances, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "We know what we saw," Fatima insisted. "Those headstones were moving, and we heard voices. We can't just ignore it." Their supervisor sighed, clearly unconvinced. "Look, I appreciate your dedication, but we have more pressing matters to attend to. Just keep an eye on the cemetery during your next shift, and report any vandalism." Reluctantly, Daniel and Fatima returned to their duties, but the experience haunted them. They couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong in that cemetery, and they were determined to uncover the truth. Over the next few days, they began to investigate the history of the cemetery. They discovered that it was one of the oldest in the area, dating back over a century. Many of the graves belonged to individuals who had died under mysterious circumstances, and there were numerous reports of strange occurrences over the years. One name stood out. A woman named Layla Ahmed, who had been buried there in the 1920s. According to local lore, she had been accused of witchcraft and was executed by the townspeople. Her grave was said to be cursed, and many believed that her spirit lingered, seeking revenge on those who wronged her. Intrigued, Daniel and Fatima decided to return to the cemetery one more time, armed with flashlights and a camera. They hoped to document any strange occurrences and gather evidence to support their claims. As night fell, they parked their car at the entrance and stepped into the cemetery, the moonlight casting eerie shadows across the graves. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the air felt charged with energy. They made their way to Layla's grave, which was located in a secluded corner of the cemetery. When they arrived, they found the headstone covered in moss and dirt, almost as if it had been deliberately hidden. Daniel brushed away the debris, revealing the inscription. Layla Ahmed, beloved daughter, wrongfully accused. As they stood there, a sudden gust of wind swept through the cemetery, causing the trees to sway and the leaves to rustle. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "Did you feel that?" he asked Fatima, who nodded, her eyes wide with fear. Suddenly, the whispering began again, echoing through the night. This time, it was clearer, and Daniel could make out words, "Help me, free me." "Layla?" Fatima whispered, her voice trembling. The ground beneath them began to tremble once more, and the headstone shifted slightly. Daniel's heart raced as he stepped back, instinctively reaching for Fatima's hand. "We need to get out of here," he said, panic rising in his chest. But before they could turn to leave, the earth erupted in front of them. A dark figure emerged from the ground, its form indistinct but undeniably human. The figure was surrounded by a swirling mist, and Daniel could see the outline of a woman with long hair and a tattered dress. "Help me," the figure cried, her voice filled with anguish. "They buried me alive. I need to be free." Daniel and Fatima stood frozen in shock, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. The figure reached out toward them, her eyes filled with desperation. "Please. You must help me." Gathering his courage, Daniel stepped forward. "What do you need us to do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Find the truth," the figure pleaded. "Expose the lies that bound me to this place. Only then will I be free." Fatima nodded, her expression resolute. "We will help you, Layla. We promise." With that, the figure began to fade, the mist swirling around her until she disappeared completely. The whispering ceased, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. Daniel and Fatima exchanged glances, both shaken but determined. "We need to find out what really happened to her," Daniel said, his voice firm. "We owe it to her." Over the next few weeks, they delved deeper into Layla's story, interviewing local historians and searching through old records. They uncovered evidence that revealed a conspiracy to silence her, including false accusations and a cover-up by the townspeople who had feared her supposed powers. Armed with this new information, Daniel and Fatima presented their findings to their superiors, demanding that the case be reopened. The evidence was compelling, and the department agreed to investigate the historical injustices surrounding Layla's death. As the investigation gained traction, the cemetery became a focal point for community discussions about justice and accountability. People began to visit Layla's grave, leaving flowers and notes of support, and the whispers that had once filled the air transformed into messages of hope. One night, as Daniel and Fatima patrolled the cemetery again, Officer Amina Shah had always been a dedicated member of the Sialkot Police Department. Known for her sharp instincts and unwavering commitment to her job, she had patrolled the streets of Sialkot for over 6 years. However, nothing could prepare her for the chilling experiences that awaited her during the late-night shifts. It was a particularly cold night in late October when Amina and her partner, Officer Bilal Khan, were assigned to patrol the older parts of the city. The streets were quiet, the only sounds being the distant rustle of leaves and the occasional bark of a dog. As they drove through the dimly lit neighborhoods, Amina felt a strange sensation creeping over her, a feeling of being watched. "Do you ever get the feeling that someone's following us?" Amina asked, glancing at Bilal, who was focused on the road. "Sometimes," he replied, his voice casual. "But it's probably just the darkness playing tricks on us." They continued their patrol, but Amina couldn't shake the feeling. As they turned down a narrow alley, the temperature seemed to drop suddenly, and a cold breeze swept through the car. Amina shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her. "Did you feel that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Bilal nodded, his brow furrowing. "Yeah, it's freezing all of a sudden. Let's check the alley." They parked the car and stepped out, the chill in the air palpable. As they walked deeper into the alley, Amina felt an unsettling presence, as if something was lurking just out of sight. The shadows seemed to shift, and she could have sworn she heard faint whispers carried on the wind. "Did you hear that?" Amina asked, stopping in her tracks. "Hear what?" Bilal replied, looking around. "It sounded like voices," she said, her heart racing. "Probably just the wind," he reassured her, though he too felt a sense of unease. They continued their patrol, but the whispers persisted, growing louder as they moved through the alley. Amina felt a chill run down her spine, and she glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see someone behind them. As they exited the alley, the feeling of being followed intensified. Amina could feel a weight in the air, a heaviness that made her skin crawl. They resumed their patrol, but the whispers continued to echo in her mind, and the cold spot seemed to follow them wherever they went. Later that night, they received a call about a disturbance at an abandoned building on the outskirts of town. Amina and Bilal arrived at the scene, the old structure looming ominously in the moonlight. As they approached, the air grew colder, and the whispers returned, more pronounced than before. "Let's check it out," Bilal said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. They entered the building, flashlights illuminating the dusty interior. The atmosphere was thick with neglect, and the air felt charged with energy. As they moved through the rooms, Amina felt a presence behind her, a sensation that made her hair stand on end. "Did you see that?" she whispered, pointing to a shadow that flickered in the corner of her eye. Bilal turned, but there was nothing there. "It's just the shadows," he said, though he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the building, causing both officers to jump. They exchanged nervous glances and moved cautiously toward the source of the noise. As they approached a room at the end of the hallway, the temperature dropped dramatically, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a tempest. "Who's there?" Amina called out, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her. The whispers intensified, forming a cacophony of voices that seemed to respond to her question. help us, they pleaded, echoing through the empty halls. Amina's heart raced as she felt a cold breeze sweep past her, and she instinctively stepped back. "We need to get out of here," she said, her voice trembling. But before they could turn to leave, the door to the room slammed shut, trapping them inside. Panic surged through Amina as she pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, filling the room with an overwhelming sense of dread. "Stay calm," Bilal said, trying to keep his composure. "We'll find a way out." Amina felt a presence closing in around them, and she could see shadows moving in the corners of her vision. "What do you want?" she shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "Free us, free us," the voices echoed, their sorrow palpable. In that moment, Amina realized that the spirits were trapped, unable to move on. "We need to help them," she said, her voice steadying as she focused on the whispers. "They're asking for help. We need to find out what happened to them." Bilal nodded, his expression shifting from fear to determination. "Okay, but how do we do that? We need to get out of here first." Amina took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. "Let's look for something, anything, that might give us a clue about who they are or what happened to them." They began to search the room, moving quickly but carefully. Dust motes danced in the beam of their flashlights as they rummaged through old furniture and debris. Amina's heart raced as she felt the cold air swirl around them, the whispers growing more frantic. "Help us, the voices pleaded, echoing in her mind. As they searched, Amina noticed a small, weathered trunk tucked away in the corner. She approached it cautiously, her instincts telling her that it might hold the answers they were seeking. With trembling hands, she opened the trunk, revealing a collection of old photographs, letters, and personal belongings. "Look at this," she said, pulling out a faded photograph of a group of people standing in front of the very building they were in. The faces were smiling, but there was a sadness in their eyes that sent chills down her spine. "Who are they?" Bilal asked, peering over her shoulder. "I don't know, but they must have some connection to this place," Amina replied, flipping through the letters. One letter caught her attention, its ink smudged but still legible. It was a farewell letter from one of the individuals, expressing love and sorrow, hinting at a tragedy that had befallen them. "They were trapped here," Amina said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something terrible happened, and they never got the chance to move on." As she read the letter aloud, the whispers grew louder, almost as if the spirits were responding to her words. "Free us, remember us." Suddenly, the door creaked open, and Amina and Bilal exchanged startled glances. The cold air rushed out of the room, and the whispers began to fade, replaced by a sense of calm. They stepped cautiously through the doorway, the oppressive atmosphere lifting slightly. "Let's get out of here," Bilal urged, and they hurried back through the building, the shadows no longer feeling as threatening. Once outside, they took a moment to catch their breath, the cool night air refreshing against their skin. Amina looked back at the old building, a sense of resolve filling her. "We need to honor their memory. They deserve to be remembered." Bilal nodded in agreement. "We should report what we found and see if we can get the history of this place documented. Maybe we can help them find peace." The next day, Amina and Bilal returned to the station and presented their findings to their superiors. They shared the photographs, letters, and the story of the spirits trapped within the building. To their surprise, the department took their claims seriously, recognizing the importance of the history behind the abandoned structure. With the help of local historians, they uncovered the tragic story of the individuals in the photographs. They had been a family who lived in the building decades ago, victims of a tragic fire that had claimed their lives. The community had mourned their loss, but over time, the memory of the family faded, leaving their spirits trapped in the place where they had once lived. Amina and Bilal organized a memorial service at the site, inviting the community to come together to honor the family and acknowledge their tragic past. As people gathered, they shared stories and memories, lighting candles in remembrance. Amina felt a sense of peace wash over her as she stood among the crowd, knowing they were finally giving the spirits the recognition they deserved. That night, As Amina and Bilal patrolled the area once more, the atmosphere felt different. The cold spots had vanished, and the whispers were replaced by a gentle breeze that rustled the leaves. It was as if the spirits had finally found their peace. "Do you think they're gone?" Bilal asked, glancing at Amina. "I think they are," she replied, a smile breaking across her face. "We helped them find closure." As they continued their patrol, Amina felt a sense of fulfillment. The unseen presence that had once haunted them was now a part of their shared history, a reminder of the importance of remembering those who had come before. They had not only served their community but had also honored the spirits of the past, ensuring that their stories would never be forgotten. Officer Raza Malik had seen his fair share of strange cases during his time with the Sialkot Police Department, but nothing could prepare him for the chilling discovery he would make one fateful night. It was a quiet evening shift when he and his partner, Officer Sarah Ahmed, received a call about a suspicious house on the outskirts of town. Neighbors had reported strange noises coming from the abandoned property, and the officers were dispatched to investigate. As they arrived at the scene, the old house loomed before them, its windows boarded up and the paint peeling from the walls. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves in the wind. Raza felt a shiver run down his spine as he approached the front door, which creaked ominously as he pushed it open. "Stay close," he said to Sarah, who nodded, her expression serious. They stepped inside, the darkness enveloping them as they switched on their flashlights. Dust motes danced in the beams of light, and the musty smell of decay filled the air. As they moved through the ground floor, they found nothing out of the ordinary, just old furniture covered in sheets and cobwebs hanging from the corners. But as they ascended the staircase, Raza felt a growing sense of unease. Something about the house felt wrong, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for them to uncover its secrets. They reached the second floor and began to check the rooms one by one. Most were empty, but as they approached the last door at the end of the hallway, Raza noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar, and a faint, metallic scent hung in the air. "Do you smell that?" he asked, glancing at Sarah. "Yeah, it smells like blood," she replied, her voice low. Raza pushed the door open, and they stepped inside. The sight that greeted them sent chills down their spines. The room was eerily pristine, but the floor was stained with fresh blood, dark and glistening under the light of their flashlights. It pooled in several spots, creating a stark contrast against the faded wooden floorboards. "What the hell?" Raza exclaimed, his heart racing. "Where's the victim?" Sarah scanned the room, her eyes wide with disbelief. "There's no sign of a struggle. No body, no evidence of anything else." Raza knelt down to examine the bloodstains more closely. "It looks fresh," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But how can there be blood without a victim?" They searched the room for any clues, but it was as if the blood had appeared out of nowhere. There were no signs of forced entry, no personal belongings, and no indication that anyone had been living there. The walls were bare, and the only furniture was a small, rickety table in the corner. "Let's call this in," Sarah said, pulling out her radio. "We need backup and a forensics team." As she spoke, Raza felt a sudden chill in the air, and the temperature in the room dropped dramatically. He glanced around, feeling an inexplicable sense of dread wash over him. "Sarah, do you feel that?" "Yeah, it's freezing," she replied, her breath visible in the air. "We should get out of here." Just then, they heard a faint whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Help me, help me." Raza's heart raced as he turned to Sarah, who looked equally alarmed. "Did you hear that?" he asked. "Yeah," she replied, her voice trembling. "We need to go now." They backed away slowly, keeping their eyes on the bloodstains as they retreated toward the door. But as they reached for the handle, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. "Open the door!" Raza shouted, panic rising in his chest. He pushed against it, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, echoing around them, filling the room with a sense of urgency and despair. "Help me, help me!" The voice pleaded again, sending chills down Raza's spine. "Who are you?" he shouted, desperation creeping into his voice. "What do you want?" The whispers intensified, swirling around them like a storm. Raza felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw a figure standing in the corner, a shadowy silhouette with hollow eyes, reaching out toward them. "Let us out!" Sarah cried, pounding on the door. "Please!" Just then, the door swung open, and they stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. They didn't stop to look back as they raced down the stairs and out of the house, the whispers fading behind them. Once outside, they collapsed against the patrol car, their hearts pounding in their chests. The cool night air felt like a balm against their flushed skin, but the terror of what they had just experienced lingered in their minds. What the hell was that? Raza gasped, trying to catch his breath. "Did you see that figure?" Sarah shook her head, still in shock. "I don't know what I saw, but we need to report this. We can't just leave it like this." Raza nodded, his mind racing. They quickly called in the incident, requesting backup and a forensics team to investigate the bloodstains. As they waited, they tried to make sense of what had happened in that room. "Do you think it was a prank?" Sarah asked, her voice shaky. "Maybe someone was trying to scare us?" "I don't think so," Raza replied, his expression serious. "That blood looked real, and the whispers, it felt like someone was trying to communicate with us." When backup arrived, Raza and Sarah led the officers back into the house, their nerves still frayed. The forensics team began to examine the bloodstains, taking samples and documenting the scene. Meanwhile, Raza and Sarah recounted their experience, describing the whispers and the shadowy figure. As the investigation continued, the team found no signs of a struggle or any evidence of a crime having taken place. The blood was indeed fresh, but there were no leads to explain its origin. The officers searched the surrounding area, hoping to find a missing person or any clues that could shed light on the situation. Hours passed, and the sun began to rise, casting a pale light over the old house. Raza and Sarah stood outside, watching as the forensics team worked diligently. Just as they were about to head back to the station, one of the forensic officers approached them, a puzzled expression on his face. "Hey, you two," he called. "You might want to see this." Raza and Sarah exchanged glances and followed him back inside. The officer led them to the room where they had found the bloodstains. "We found something," he said, pointing to the floor. There, hidden beneath the floorboards, was a small, dusty box. The officer carefully pried it open, revealing a collection of old photographs, letters, and personal items. Raza's heart raced as he recognized one of the faces in the photographs. It was a young woman, smiling brightly, surrounded by friends. "This must have belonged to someone who lived here," Sarah said, examining the items. "Maybe it can help us figure out what happened." As they sifted through the contents, they found a letter addressed to the woman in the photograph, written by a friend. The letter spoke of a tragic event, a car accident that had claimed the lives of several people, including the woman's family. The last line sent chills down Raza's spine. "I'm so sorry for what happened. I wish I could help you find peace." Could this be connected to the blood? Raza wondered aloud. Maybe she never got closure. Just then, the temperature in the room dropped again, and the whispers returned, more urgent than before. "Help me, help me." Raza and Sarah exchanged worried glances. "It's like she's trying to tell us something," Sarah said, her voice trembling. "We need to find out what happened to her," Raza said, determination filling his voice. "If she's trapped here, we have to help her move on." With the newfound evidence, they began to dig deeper into the history of the house and the woman in the photograph. They discovered that her name was Amina, and she had lived in the house with her family before the tragic accident. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Amina's spirit was tied to the house, unable to find peace due to the unresolved trauma of her past. Raza and Sarah worked tirelessly, reaching out to local historians and family members of the victims. They organized a memorial service to honor Amina and her family, inviting the community to come together to remember those who had lost their lives in the accident. On the night of the memorial, the atmosphere was heavy with emotion. Candles flickered in the cool evening air as people gathered to share stories and pay their respects. Raza and Sarah stood at the front, feeling a sense of purpose as they spoke about Amina's story and the importance of remembering those who had been lost. As the service concluded, Raza felt a warm breeze sweep through the gathering, and the whispers faded into a gentle silence. It was as if Amina's spirit was finally at peace, surrounded by love and remembrance. In the days that followed, the bloodstains in the room faded, and the oppressive atmosphere of the house lifted. Raza and Sarah returned to the site one last time, feeling a sense of closure. In the quiet town of Eldridge, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, the air was thick with an unsettling tension. The townsfolk had been whispering about a series of strange occurrences, pets going missing, shadows lurking in the night, and a sense of dread that seemed to hang over the community like a dark cloud. One chilly autumn evening, Officer Mark Thompson and his partner, Officer Sarah Jenkins, were patrolling the streets when they received a call about an elderly woman who had been seen wandering near the old cemetery. The woman, known as Mrs. Agnes Holloway, had been a beloved figure in Eldridge, known for her kind heart and sharp wit. However, she had passed away 3 years prior, leaving behind a legacy of stories and a small, empty house at the end of Maple Street. Curious and slightly apprehensive, the officers drove to the cemetery, their headlights cutting through the thickening fog. As they approached, they spotted a figure hunched over near a weathered gravestone. It was a frail old woman, her silver hair cascading down her back, dressed in a long, tattered coat. "Mrs. Holloway?" Officer Thompson called out, his voice echoing in the stillness. The woman turned slowly, her eyes wide and filled with an urgency that sent a chill down their spines. "You must listen to me," she exclaimed, her voice trembling. "There's a dangerous criminal in our town. He's been watching, waiting. You have to warn everyone." Officer Jenkins exchanged a glance with her partner, confusion etched on her face. "Mrs. Holloway, you've been gone for years. How can you be here?" The old woman's expression shifted from urgency to sorrow. "I know what you think, but I'm here for a reason. He's coming for you, for all of you. You must believe me." Before they could respond, the woman turned and began to walk away, her form fading into the mist. The officers rushed after her, but as they reached the spot where she had stood, there was nothing but the cold, damp ground and the echo of her warning. Shaken, Officer Thompson and Officer Jenkins returned to their patrol car, their minds racing. "What just happened?" Jenkins asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Thompson replied, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "But we need to investigate. If there's even a chance that what she said is true." The next day, they delved into the town's records, uncovering a series of unsolved crimes that had occurred since Mrs. Holloway's death. Each incident bore a chilling resemblance to the old woman's warning. Pets had gone missing, and several residents reported seeing a shadowy figure lurking near their homes. Determined to protect their community, the officers organized a town meeting, urging residents to stay vigilant. As they spoke, a sense of unease settled over the crowd. Many shared their own experiences, recounting strange noises at night and the feeling of being watched. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in Eldridge grew. The officers patrolled the streets more frequently, but the shadowy figure remained elusive. Then, one fateful night, as the moon hung low in the sky, they received a call about a break-in at the local hardware store. Rushing to the scene, they found the store ransacked, but the thief was nowhere to be found. As they searched the area, Officer Jenkins spotted a figure darting into the nearby woods. Without hesitation, they pursued, adrenaline pumping through their veins. The chase led them deeper into the forest, where the trees loomed like silent sentinels. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a hidden campsite, littered with stolen goods and makeshift shelters. In the dim light, they caught a glimpse of the figure, a man with wild eyes and a menacing grin. "Stop! Police!" Officer Thompson shouted, but the man bolted, disappearing into the shadows. They chased him through the underbrush, their hearts racing. Just as they were about to lose him, they heard a voice, a familiar, haunting voice. "Mark! Sarah! This way!" It was Mrs. Holloway, her spirit guiding them through the darkness. They followed her voice, and with renewed determination, they cornered the man against a tree. With the criminal apprehended, the officers returned to town, their hearts heavy with the weight of what had transpired. They had solved the mystery, but the cost was high. The townsfolk gathered to celebrate their bravery, but they knew that Mrs. Holloway's warning had been more than just a ghostly apparition, it had been a call to action. As the sun set over Eldridge, Officer Thompson and Officer Jenkins stood at the cemetery, a sense of gratitude washing over them. They placed flowers on Mrs. Holloway's grave, whispering their thanks for her guidance. The town was safe. But the memory of her warning would linger in their hearts forever. In the weeks that followed, the town of Eldridge began to heal. The sense of fear that had gripped the community slowly dissipated, replaced by a renewed sense of unity. Residents came together to support one another, sharing stories and laughter in the wake of the turmoil. The local cafe, once a quiet spot, became a hub of activity as people gathered to discuss their experiences and celebrate their safety. Officer Thompson and Officer Jenkins continued their patrols, but now they did so with a deeper understanding of their role in the community. They organized safety workshops, teaching residents how to protect their homes and stay vigilant. The bond between the officers and the townsfolk grew stronger, as they worked together to ensure that Eldridge remained a safe haven. One evening, as the officers were wrapping up their shift, they received a call from a resident who had spotted something unusual near the old Holloway house. Intrigued, they decided to investigate. As they approached the dilapidated structure, they felt a strange energy in the air, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Inside, they discovered remnants of Mrs. Holloway's life. Old photographs, letters, and trinkets that told the story of a woman who had loved her town fiercely. Among the items, they found a journal, its pages filled with Agnes's thoughts and observations about the community. It revealed her concerns about the rising crime rates and her fears for the safety of her neighbors. As they read through the journal, they realized that Mrs. Holloway had been more than just a kind old woman. She had been a vigilant guardian of Eldridge, always looking out for her fellow residents. Inspired by her dedication, the officers decided to honor her memory by establishing a community watch program, named in her honor. The Holloway Watch became a symbol of resilience and unity in Eldridge. Residents volunteered to keep an eye on their neighborhoods, reporting any suspicious activity and looking out for one another. The program not only enhanced safety but also fostered a sense of belonging among the townsfolk. As the seasons changed, the town flourished. The once quiet streets buzzed with life, and the spirit of community thrived. Officer Thompson and Officer Jenkins often reflected on that fateful night in the cemetery, grateful for the warning that had come from beyond the grave. They knew that Mrs. Holloway's spirit would always be a part of Eldridge, watching over them as they continued to build a safer, more connected community. Years later, on the anniversary of her passing, the townspeople gathered at the cemetery to honor Mrs. Holloway. They shared stories of her kindness, her wisdom, and the impact she had on their lives. As they placed flowers on her grave, a gentle breeze rustled the leaves, and for a moment, they felt her presence among them, a reminder that love and vigilance could transcend even the boundaries of life and death. In the heart of Eldridge, the legacy of Agnes Holloway lived on, a testament to the power of community, the importance of listening to one another, and the enduring strength of a warning that had changed everything. In the bustling city of Crestwood, the police station was a hub of activity, with officers responding to calls, investigating reports, and maintaining order. Among the officers was Detective Laura Mitchell, a seasoned investigator known for her sharp instincts and unwavering dedication to her job. However, nothing could prepare her for the strange series of events that would soon unfold. It all began on a rainy Tuesday evening when the station received a call from a number that didn't exist. The call came through the main line, crackling with static, and the voice on the other end was shaky and urgent. "Listen carefully," the caller said, their voice barely above a whisper. "There's going to be a robbery at the Crestwood jewelry store tonight. You need to stop it." Detective Mitchell, intrigued yet skeptical, took down the details and dispatched a patrol car to the jewelry store. As the officers arrived, they found the store's owner locking up for the night, completely unaware of any impending threat. The officers assured him that everything was fine, but they couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Later that night, as the rain poured down, the police received another call from the same mysterious number. This time, the voice warned of a potential arson at a nearby warehouse. Detective Mitchell, now on high alert, sent a team to investigate. To their shock, they arrived just in time to see a figure fleeing the scene, flames licking at the edges of the building. The officers managed to extinguish the fire before it spread, but the mysterious caller's warnings were becoming increasingly unsettling. Over the next few weeks, the police station received several more calls from the same number, each time predicting a crime that would later occur. A mugging in the park, a break-in at a local convenience store, and even a domestic dispute that escalated into violence. Each time, the officers acted on the tips, preventing further damage and ensuring the safety of the community. Yet, the identity of the caller remained a mystery. Detective Mitchell became obsessed with uncovering the truth. She spent hours poring over phone records, trying to trace the calls, but the number led to a dead end. It was as if the caller was a ghost, haunting the station with their warnings. Frustrated but determined, she decided to take a different approach. One evening, she set up a stakeout at the police station, hoping to catch the caller in the act. As the clock ticked past midnight, the phone rang again. Heart racing, she answered, her voice steady. Crestwood Police Department. Who is this? The voice on the other end was familiar, yet distorted. You need to listen. There's going to be a kidnapping at the old mill tomorrow night. You have to act fast. Before she could respond, the line went dead. Mitchell's mind raced as she relayed the information to her colleagues. They quickly formulated a plan to monitor the old mill, a decrepit structure that had long been abandoned. The next evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the officers took their positions, hidden from view. Hours passed in silence, tension hanging in the air. Just when they thought the caller might have been mistaken, a van pulled up to the mill, and figures emerged from the shadows. Detective Mitchell and her team sprang into action, apprehending the suspects just as they were about to force a young woman into the van. The officers managed to rescue her unharmed, and the suspects were taken into custody. As the adrenaline faded, Mitchell felt a mix of relief and frustration. They had saved a life, but the identity of the mysterious caller remained elusive. Determined to find answers, Mitchell decided to dig deeper into the cases that had been reported. She discovered a pattern: each crime had a connection to a local gang that had been operating in the shadows, evading capture for years. The mysterious caller seemed to have insider knowledge, but who were they? Days turned into weeks, and the calls continued, each one leading to a successful intervention. Finally, during one late-night shift, the phone rang again. This time, the voice was clearer, more confident. Detective Mitchell, it's time you knew the truth. Who are you? She demanded, her heart racing. I'm someone who wants to help. I used to be part of the gang, but I've turned my life around. I can't let them hurt anyone else. You need to take them down before it's too late. Mitchell felt a mix of disbelief and hope. How do I know you're telling the truth? I can give you names, locations, everything you need. But you have to trust me. After a tense negotiation, they arranged to meet in a secluded area the following night. Detective Mitchell arrived, her heart pounding as she scanned the surroundings. Moments later, a figure emerged from the shadows, a young man, nervous but determined. I'm here to help you, he said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. My name is Alex. I used to run with the gang, but I've seen too much. I can't be part of it anymore. Detective Mitchell studied him carefully, weighing her options. Why should I trust you, Alex? You could be leading me into a trap. I know the gang's operations inside and out. I can tell you where they're meeting, who's involved, and how they plan to strike next. But I need protection. They won't let me go easily. After a moment of contemplation, Mitchell nodded. All right, we'll get you protection. But you need to provide us with everything you know. Over the next few hours, Alex divulged critical information about the gang's activities, including their upcoming plans for a major heist that could endanger countless lives. He provided names, locations, and even details about their hideouts. Detective Mitchell took meticulous notes, her mind racing with the implications of what he was revealing. With this newfound intelligence, the police department launched a coordinated operation to dismantle the gang. They set up surveillance on the locations Alex had provided, gathering evidence and preparing for a series of arrests. The operation was risky, but the stakes were high, and they had the element of surprise on their side. The night of the planned heist arrived, and the police were ready. Officers surrounded the gang's hideout, waiting for the signal to move in. As the clock struck midnight, Alex's information proved invaluable. The gang members, unaware of the impending raid, began to gather for their operation. "Now!" Mitchell shouted into her radio, and the officers stormed the building, catching the gang off guard. A flurry of activity ensued as the police apprehended the suspects, handcuffing them and securing the area. The operation was a success, and the gang was finally brought to justice. In the aftermath, Detective Mitchell stood outside the precinct, the weight of the night's events settling in. Alex had been placed in protective custody, and she hoped he would find a way to rebuild his life away from crime. The mysterious calls had led them to a breakthrough, and the city of Crestwood was safer for it. As the sun rose over the city, Mitchell reflected on the strange journey that had begun with a call from a number that didn't exist. The voice that had warned them of impending crimes had turned out to be a lifeline, guiding them through the darkness. In the weeks that followed, the police station received no more calls from the mysterious number. It was as if the caller had vanished, leaving behind a legacy of vigilance and a reminder that sometimes, help comes from the most unexpected places. Detective Mitchell continued her work, but she would never forget the lessons learned from the mysterious caller. She understood now that the line between right and wrong could be blurred, and that redemption was possible, even for those who had strayed far from the path. As she walked through the precinct, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The city was healing, and she was determined to protect it, one call at a time. In the small town of Willow Creek, nestled at the edge of a vast and ancient forest, tales of disappearances had woven themselves into the fabric of local lore. The forest, known as Eldergrove, was a place of beauty and mystery, but it was also shrouded in fear. Over the years, several people had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of their last moments. The local police department had received numerous reports of strange occurrences in Eldergrove, but nothing could prepare Officer Jake Reynolds and his partner, Officer Mia Torres, for what they were about to encounter. It was a crisp autumn evening when they were assigned to patrol the forest, tasked with investigating reports of unusual sightings and ensuring the safety of the townsfolk. As they entered the forest, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows between the towering trees. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, and an eerie silence enveloped them. The officers switched on their flashlights, beams cutting through the darkness as they ventured deeper into the woods. "Keep your eyes peeled," Jake said, his voice steady but laced with tension. "This place has a reputation." Mia nodded, her heart racing. "I've heard the stories. People say they see things, figures moving between the trees, whispers in the wind. It's unsettling." As they continued their patrol, the atmosphere grew heavier, and the forest seemed to come alive with an unsettling energy. Suddenly, a rustling sound echoed from the underbrush, causing both officers to freeze. They exchanged glances, their breath visible in the cool air. "Did you hear that?" Mia whispered, gripping her flashlight tighter. "Yeah," Jake replied, scanning the area. "Let's check it out." They moved cautiously toward the sound, their flashlights illuminating the dense foliage. As they approached, they caught a glimpse of something darting between the trees, a shadowy figure that vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Did you see that?" Mia exclaimed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, but it could be an animal," Jake suggested, though he felt a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. They pressed on, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The forest was alive with sounds. Branches creaking, leaves rustling, and an occasional distant whisper that sent chills down their spines. Just as they were about to turn back, they heard a faint cry, echoing through the trees. "Help! Please, help me!" The voice was desperate, filled with fear. "Did you hear that?" Mia asked, her eyes wide with alarm. "Yeah, it's coming from over there," Jake said, pointing toward a thicket of trees. Without hesitation, they moved toward the sound, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they approached, the cries grew louder, but the source remained elusive. They called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" Their voices echoed back, swallowed by the darkness. Suddenly, the cries stopped, replaced by an unsettling silence. The officers exchanged worried glances, their instincts screaming that something was wrong. Just then, they saw movement again, a figure, pale and gaunt, standing between the trees. "Who are you?" Jake called out, his voice steady despite the fear gripping him. The figure turned, revealing hollow eyes and a sorrowful expression. "Help me," it whispered, its voice barely audible. "I can't find my way home." Mia felt a chill run down her spine. "What happened to you?" she asked, stepping closer. "I was lost. I can't remember how long I've been here," the figure replied, its form flickering like a candle in the wind. "You have to help me before it's too late." Jake felt a surge of compassion but also a deep sense of dread. "We'll help you. Just stay where you are." As they moved closer, the figure began to dissolve into the shadows, its form becoming indistinct. "No! Don't leave me," it cried, but the voice faded into the night. Panic surged through the officers. "We need to get out of here," Mia urged, her voice trembling. "This isn't right." They turned to leave, but the forest seemed to shift around them. The trees loomed taller, the path they had taken now obscured by darkness. The whispers returned, swirling around them like a haunting melody. "Stay together," Jake said, trying to keep his composure. They retraced their steps, but the forest felt alive, shifting and changing, as if it were a living entity intent on keeping them trapped. Just when they thought they were lost forever, they stumbled upon a clearing bathed in moonlight. In the center stood an ancient tree, its gnarled branches reaching toward the sky. The air felt different here, charged with an energy that both frightened and fascinated them. "Look!" Mia pointed toward the base of the tree, where a small, weathered plaque was embedded in the ground. They approached cautiously, their flashlights illuminating the inscription. "In memory of those who wandered and were lost. May they find peace in the embrace of the Eldergrove." Jake knelt down, tracing the letters with his fingers. "This must be a memorial for the people who disappeared in this forest," he said, his voice low. "Maybe it's a warning." As they stood there, the atmosphere shifted again. The whispers grew louder, swirling around them like a tempest. Shadows danced between the trees, and the air grew thick with an overwhelming sense of despair. "Jake, we need to go. Now!" Mia urged, her eyes wide with fear. Just as they turned to leave, the figure reappeared, emerging from the shadows once more. This time, it looked more solid, its features clearer. "You can't leave me," it pleaded, its voice echoing with a haunting resonance. "I'm trapped here, just like the others. You have to help me find my way home." Jake felt a pang of sympathy, but he also sensed the danger. "We can't help you if we get lost too," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Tell us how to help you." The figure's expression shifted from desperation to sorrow. "You must remember. Remember the path you took. The forest feeds on fear and confusion. If you let it, it will keep you forever." Mia's heart raced as she glanced at Jake. "We need to focus. We can't let it take us." Right, Jake said, taking a deep breath. We need to retrace our steps. We came in from the east side of the forest. Let's go back that way. As they turned to leave, the figure reached out, its hand trembling. Please, don't forget me. I was lost, but I can't be forgotten. With a heavy heart, Jake replied, we won't forget you. We'll tell your story. The figure's expression softened, and for a moment, it seemed to shimmer with gratitude. Thank you, it whispered, before fading back into the shadows. Determined, Jake and Mia began to navigate their way back through the forest, focusing on the path they had taken. The whispers grew fainter, and the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. They moved quickly, their flashlights cutting through the darkness as they retraced their steps. After what felt like an eternity, they finally broke through the tree line and emerged into the cool night air outside the forest. The stars twinkled above them, and the familiar sounds of the town filled their ears. They had made it out. Breathing heavily, they turned to look back at Eldergrove, the trees standing tall and silent. We need to report this, Mia said, her voice trembling. People need to know what's happening in there. Jake nodded, still processing the encounter. We'll tell them about the memorial and the stories of those who disappeared. Maybe we can help bring closure to their families. As they drove back to the station, the weight of the night's events settled heavily on their shoulders. They knew that the forest held secrets, and while they had escaped, the memory of the lost souls would linger with them. In the days that followed, Jake and Mia worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the disappearances in Eldergrove. They organized community meetings, sharing their experiences and urging residents to stay away from the forest. They also reached out to families of the missing, offering support and a promise to keep their loved ones' stories alive. The town rallied around them, and together they created a memorial at the edge of the forest, honoring those who had vanished. It became a place of remembrance, where families could come to pay their respects and share their stories. Though the forest remained a place of mystery and fear, the community's efforts brought a sense of hope. Jake and Mia knew that while they could not change the past, they could help ensure that the lost souls of Eldergrove would not be forgotten. As they stood at the memorial one evening, watching the sun set behind the trees, Mia turned to Jake. Do you think we'll ever know what really happened in there? Jake sighed, looking out at the forest. Maybe not. But we've given a voice to those who couldn't speak. That's something. And as the wind rustled through the leaves, it felt as if the forest itself was whispering its gratitude, a reminder that even in darkness, there could be light.